I want to turn to Ken Patterson from Results. Here we are, the August recess is upon us. We still, as we talked about the last time, heartily encourage all of you to make appointments with members of Congress. Invite them to your sites, just set up a meeting. But there are other ways too to reach out to them and make contact. And Ken has some very good ideas and experience along these lines. So Ken, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Debbie. I'm really happy to be with everybody here today. My name is Ken Patterson. I'm the Director of Grassroots Impact for Results. And so what I'm about to share with you is things that we train our advocates to do around the country. And as you all have been talking about, it's incredibly important to be in touch with our members of Congress during the August recess, ideally in person, whether that's a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting in their district. But there are other ways to get in front of members and educate the public at the same time. And what I'm going to cover are just what I'm calling bird dogging basics. This is basically how to show up powerfully at town hall meetings. So I'm going to share my screen here with a few slides, and I'm just going to give you some tips on how do you actually effectively bird dog and show up in your communities at town hall meetings. So bird dogging, it's really a set of strategies for showing up and following your decision makers at public events with the purpose of engaging them and educating the public on an issue which you're seeking change. So that's what bird dogging is here. And then in terms of, well, how do you find these public events and opportunities for the bird dogging? Well, you sign up for the newsletters of your elected officials for one, because oftentimes they'll put that out there in terms of where they're going to be in the community when they're visiting back home. Also visiting their websites. You can also just call and email the office and say, hey, is the member going to be in public anywhere? I'd love to go see what they have to say during the congressional recess. You can follow your officials on social media as well. Check your local newspapers. A lot of times they'll post that information. And then look at your neighborhood apps as well and ask if anybody knows of any events that are coming up with your members of Congress, your representatives or senators. This is also good for state level officials too. And then before your event, you want to make sure that you have a group of people. Ideally, the more the merrier, but any number of people can actually bird dog. You can organize any number of people to do this. And you want to meet with your team to plan your questions and your logistics before you go to the event. You want to ensure that everyone has the same questions in the same order. So if you're sending 5 people, everybody's got the same 3 questions in the same order. Your goal is to get your top question asked and answered, and then your second one, and then your third one. And if you want to have 5 questions, you think you might get them in at a town hall, come with that many, but at least 3 is a good one to have on your list. You want to plan to arrive early at your event so that you can, get a good seat. You can get a strategic seat. You can maybe talk to the staff beforehand, before the event starts, and do some relationship building there. You want to wear bright colored shirts that will show up, but don't wear matching shirts. Don't show up as members from the same organization, because if they've called on one member from the organization and say, oh, we already heard from that organization, we're not going to call on anybody else from that organization. So you want to show up so you're seen, but don't make it look like you're all together, because you're going to spread out anyway. Bring your fact sheets on the issues, the sign-on letters that you talked about earlier. You could bring copies of those as well. Bring some local data that will impact your issue. And then also include your contact information. Make sure they know how to get in touch with you when you leave your information with them. So this is the planning in advance. And then in terms of forming your questions, make sure you have some sort of a thank you to acknowledge your elected officials for. They very rarely get acknowledged for the work that they do. So find something to thank them for. In your question, if you can, use a quote or their own words if possible. Go to their websites. If they've had public appearances, try to use their own words as a way to connect with them on their values and concerns. Write a brief question that will educate the public and call them to action. And at Results, we use the EPIC format, which is basically engage. And this is how you could form your question. An engagement statement, talk about the problem, inform about the solution, and a specific call to action. The idea is to ask your elected officials directly if they will do something that you can get a yes or no answer to in the public event. And then also just practice saying your questions before the event so that you're ready to talk them. And it's fine to have them on a piece of paper too while you're at the event. At the event itself, or again, arrive early to get the best possible seats and to chat with the staff. You want to spread out across the event space, but place yourself toward the front, ideally, and near aisles. The aisles gives you a chance to jump up and grab a mic if there's a mic in the aisle to be able to ask questions and all that. And then throughout the event, you want to look like a fan. You want to smile, you want to affirm, you want to applaud. You want to make, they're going to want to call more on people who look favorable to them, who are going to be friendly to them and not shake their fingers at them. So look like a fan while you're there. Anticipate the question and answer period. There's always a question and answer period in the public town halls, but make sure you anticipate that. You can start raising your hand before they actually ask, who's got questions and stuff like that, because then they'll see you. They'll catch them. You'll catch them out of the corner of your eye. And then you want to raise your hand high and fast. And then ideally, if there's a mic in the aisle, they say, line up behind the mic, do that ASAP, get up there right away. There's always a hesitation point before people do that. So that's a good opportunity to jump into the aisle to ask your question. So in terms of asking your questions, if you're called upon, say your name, why you care about the issue, thank the official, and then ask your yes or no question. Keep it pretty brief, 30 to 45 seconds, but you do want to provide a little bit of context for the issue itself. I'll give an example in a second. If the first question gets answered, then the next person can ask the second question if you get called on. But if the official does not answer your first question very well, then if the second one of your team gets called on, they can say, I have a question too, but I really don't think you completely answered that last question. I'd like to hear an answer to that. Could you do that please first? And then I'd like to ask this question. And so again, trying to get really sort of clear with them on an answer. After the event, you want to head for the handshake line and shake hands with the elected official. And this may seem cheesy, but it works. Hold the official's hand firmly but politely while asking your question and getting a response. And just, kind of hang on to it until you get a little bit of a response and attention. Again, it does sound cheesy, but it actually really works. And then bring a fact sheet to give them, again, with your contact information. And then have somebody else in your group go talk to the media, get quoted in the media about the issue you care about. Stay focused on the issue that was highlighted. They might ask you, well, what do you think about the turnout, or what the representative was wearing? It's like, well, actually, I'm here to talk about WIC because right now we're experiencing a huge shortfall in WIC and we need to do something about it. So again, if you've got a group of people, have some folks go off, talk to the media, make sure other folks get in the handshake line to talk to the member. And then in terms of just building relationships during these events, there's multiple opportunities. One, introduce yourself to the staff if you get there early in particular, and also afterwards. Tell them about yourself and why you care, and ask if they'd like to meet later on to talk about the issues. Chat with potential volunteers that you see in the room, people who are really interested, other people who have asked questions. Find them in the crowd. Say, wow, you seem really passionate about this. Maybe we should talk about working together. Invite them to attend an event or come to a local advocacy meeting afterwards. Introduce yourself again to the local media, ask them about their work, tell them about your issues, and be positive about the experience. You want to be quoted in the paper saying anything negative about the event or the candidate or the member. And then in terms of, I just want to show you a short example of what this can look like. And as a precursor, I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to share my screen again, but a different thing here. This thing here, I'm going to share sound. So right before this is on C-SPAN. So we did a bird dogging training up in New Hampshire, and and we were going to this event for Hillary Clinton. And so I walked out of the elevator that morning, and I said to folks, I said, so what do you notice about me this morning? And they guessed and they guessed, and I said, well, what color is my shirt? They said red. I said, why am I wearing red? Oh, so they can see you. Yeah. And so we had several people get their questions asked by candidate Clinton at the time. including a gentleman who had pasted a Clinton sticker on his forehead and was a huge fan in the crowd. So let me just play you this short video for you. And this was the start of the question and answer session.
And my goodness, where shall we start? Well, there's a man right there in the red shirt. Yes, sir.
Hi, Secretary Clinton. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited about the college initiative. I know also that education has been important to you both here and around the globe. Right now, early childhood education is a key part of all of this stuff, making sure that people have an opportunity to actually go into the future and eventually go into college. But around the world right now, we got about 58 million kids who are not even stepping foot inside a grade school. We got about 165 million kids that are suffering from malnutrition, stunting, and their brains and bodies are not developing properly. And I would love to see, and I'm asking you if you'd be willing to launch an initiative as president for early childhood education that would focus on nutrition and getting all kids in preschool and grade school.
Thank you. Well, the answer is yes and yes. The first yes is in our own country. We have got to do more here to get more children prepared to be successful in school. And I feel very strongly about this. Some of you have heard me talk about it before because.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop that there, but these techniques do work. You could see that was me in the red shirt there getting called on. That was the first question of it. I had put my hand up really early and fast, and she saw me and called on me right away. So, and again, I've been to a lot of bird dogging events, and again, this stuff really does work. So this is a great way to get in front of your members of Congress during the recess. And you might say something like, you know, on the WIC, you were talking about WIC earlier, and I thought, you know, we're facing a child care cliff, as someone called it, and with the Women's, Infants, and Children Program, or WIC, it's affecting people in our community and in your district. You know, when you head back to Washington, will you please speak to leadership and ask that they increase funding now or in any end of the year spending bill for WIC? The infants and moms around the county and the district are really counting on you and counting on this program for survival. Would you be willing to do that? And so asking that kind of a question during a town hall would be great. You can say, I have a sign-on letter to share with you, some media and some local data that would be really important to look at. So then you get people in the community that have learned about this, and you have a really clear request for the member of Congress then for when they go back to Washington. They're going to either say yes or no, or I'm going to look into it, or do you have more information? And then you're going to start a conversation and dialogue with them. So I'm going to stop there with my presentation. I hope it's helpful. I hope it inspires some people to get out during the recess and try to find some of those town hall meetings.
Well, that's absolutely terrific. And you are getting an awful lot of praise in the chat of people who think it's very helpful. I have promised that we'll have your slides to share in the follow-up email tomorrow so that people can hang on to all these great tips